Victoria and I are presenting together, and you'll hear mostly from me.
And I'll try to chime in once in a while like this.
But Victoria will be in the chat, and she'll be answering questions there as well. So there'll be a little bit of back and forth, so bear with us with that. We are going to make this a very interactive workshop, and so we'll go through a little bit of the timeline and what we're going to cover, but it was really great to see everybody come into the space and participate in the Poll Everywhere. I don't know if it's possible for us to go back to the Poll Everywhere for just one quick moment and take a look. Oh, maybe not.
There we go.
Okay, so some of these words that are describing open pedagogy: accessible, collaborative, inclusive. If you haven't had a chance to participate, oh, it's not accepting responses, but just take a look at this word cloud. And these are some of the guiding ideas and concepts that will be with us today in the workshop.
A little bit more about us. You know, we founded this organization, Cool Anthropology, very specifically to take rigorous scholarship and get it onto the streets, get it into the hands of people who can use it, whether that be students or professionals doing their work in any space. So we really bring a lot of passion to this sort of work, and we're really excited to share some strategies with you today and to learn from you. We're really trying to make this interactive, and so we can all learn from each other and be inspired by everybody's ideas.
And as Natalie told you, I'm the Director of Anthropology at Cool Anthropology, and we lovingly refer to Victoria as the Director of Cool. So she sees that us academics, researchers, professors, instructors have a lot of information to share with the world, but we don't always know the most exciting and engaging and collaborative and inclusive way to share it. So that is what drives our mission and is at the foundation of our workshop and our time together today. All right, so a little bit about the way that the workshop is going to go. In the first hour, we're going to open up that open pedagogy discussion that you all have already started participating in and think about how we understand open pedagogy and share with each other about how broadening our learning objectives and outcomes can speak to open pedagogy and how access and relevance intersect with the discussion. And in the second hour, we'll be working on the assignments. Hopefully many of you followed the prompt and brought an assignment that you wanted to open up and think about making more inclusive and making more lasting, and we'll focus on that in the second hour of the workshop. All right, so we had a lot of words that described open pedagogy on that opening word cloud. Something that I brought together that sort of drives our thinking about open pedagogy is it's teaching and learning together that are focused on centering these iterative and active experiential processes, and then move away from that traditional student consumption of knowledge that we are bestowing upon them toward a more student creation and contribution to a wider body of knowledge and research that includes the public and that includes people outside of the traditional academic realm. All right, so there's much to focus on, many different ways to think about open pedagogy, but something that these four sort of guiding principles are going to sort of frame hopefully our discussion today. Number one being the non-disposable assignment, or the renewable assignment, right? So instead of simply taking a test or writing a paper that gets graded and then maybe the comments are read and then they're thrown in the garbage, we're going to talk about what does it mean to have a non-disposable assignment. Producers of knowledge and not consumers, that entered into the definition there, what it means to produce knowledge and to ask our students to do that, and what are the ramifications of asking our students to do that, how we can think about applied learning in the context of our assignments and our assignment design, and how what students are learning can be applied, and and the civic engagement piece. So what are we asking our students to do, not just as students for themselves, but as citizens in their communities? And how can our assignments support the way that students live and are in their communities? Okay, so we're starting with this idea of a non-disposable assignment, right? So this is a very powerful quote. Not only do these assignments add no value to the world, they actually suck value out of the world. Now, I know I assign some assignments that are designed just for student use and looking at student work, but I think that this is really something that we can really kind of push ourselves to think about, right? What does it mean to have an assignment that lives on in the world? All right, what does that actually mean to have an assignment that's not just for you to grade, and not just for the student to look at? And this idea of the contagion effect, right? When a student is building on previous work, if they see someone else's assignment, rather than that being something that they shouldn't see, or something that you know, is cheating in some way, what if that means that they're more excited to learn and go deeper and to build on previous work? And what does real feedback actually mean, right? So if you're giving feedback to a student, what if it's feedback that's not coming from just the professor, but feedback that's coming from somebody in the world that's engaging with their assignment that they created? And what is the power of actually getting a comment from on a blog post you wrote from around the world, and somewhere around the world, a real person, rather than just your professor commenting on your work? And what is the weight of that, and what are the stakes involved? All right, and then the second point that we're going to be discussing in just a couple of minutes is this idea that students can produce and not just consume knowledge. So if we're contributing to the knowledge commons, what does that mean for the agency of the student and access? And how does that favor community over content? How does that put those connections and the people that you're connecting with in the course of your assignment, or just the product or the content, or what you produce? And how does shifting that power differential actually impact student learning? All right, so the time is almost here for us to try our first breakout group. So what we're going to do, we're going to ask you in the breakout groups to think about all that information that I very quickly went through, but I'm sure that you've been thinking about many of these concepts prior to coming to this workshop. And we really want you to value, to speak to each other and gain from this wealth of experience that's in this Zoom room at the moment. So we're going to ask you to focus on each person in your breakout group getting an equal amount of time. How can you address community access with your lesson? And is there content out there that students can contribute to, right? So if students are producers of knowledge, they're building on a knowledge base that you're facilitating them to engage with, right? One that you've perhaps done research about, or that you're passionate about. And they're taking your class, where is their content already that students can engage with in the world? And how can you address their access to that content, community access, student access to that content? So discuss the external content, your lesson and learning outcomes, and then you can contextualize that and how it might be relevant to your discipline, as well as your students and communities. So we're asking for you at least to give 1 minute of feedback from your group, so you can speak for 2 minutes. This is where the technical coordination has come in. How many people are here, and how long will you be speaking for? You'll speak for roughly 2 minutes. Each person in your group should speak for roughly 2 minutes, and then you should give about a minute of feedback. Is that correct? Is there a place? So we'll answer those questions that are coming. So what happens if you haven't experienced this before is the questions that are on this slide. The slides will not travel with you, but the link to the slides will, so you can, anybody can have access to these slides. But we will also paste these questions to guide your breakout discussion into the chat. So when you get into your breakout room, it will happen automatically. It's kind of a little bit futuristic, I find, where I'm like tucked into a different room. You will, you'll have the ability to unmute yourselves, and you will answer these questions and listen and give feedback. And then when we come back, you'll have an opportunity to come back into a poll like you started this session, and then we'll ask for someone to report out. So that's the way it's going to go. So let's thank you all for being here and for trying this, and I'm sure it will go great. And you guys are going to meet some awesome people. I can see them in the chat. So you're about to meet some awesome people. All ready? Let's do it. We'll see you soon.
Hello there. It looks like you're still looking to be assigned to a breakout room, or
okay.
are you
I
guys?
didn't know if I was in the breakout room or.
I think you're in the breakout room. I'm going to actually be out of the breakout room, so I'm going to mute myself and go back to.
Is it just us?
Can you open that window for me, please?
I guess so. Introductions.
Yeah.
I'm Tom McFall, LA Trade Tech, part of the Los Angeles Community College district, and I teach automotive.
Okay. Hi, I'm Jane Bryan. I'm from the University of Warwick School of Law, and I teach medical law and property law.
It's
very dark here.
And I teach nursing at California Baptist University.
So I'm Kathy Dirash. I teach leadership at Granite State College. And I just got on, so I have no idea what's happening here.
Oh, well, I'm only a few minutes ahead of you, so I'm feeling a little bit at sea as well.
Please wait to be assigned. We are being recorded.
Well, some are disappearing, so I guess they're being pulled into different groups.
Wow. Well, it was good to see you.
You too.
Well,
Enjoy your.
can you tell me more about teaching automotive? What do you?
I teach engine, brakes, electrical, air conditioning, and it's been kind of difficult right now because we're a hands-on area, and all the stuff that we're presenting is now online. Fortunately, I was using the Canvas with a web support for many years, so it's kind of been a little bit easier for me to transition, but looks like we're all disappearing into limbo. Well, it was good chatting with you all, and maybe we'll talk to you a little bit later.
Yeah, likewise. Well, stay safe and enjoy the rest of the wherever you end up.
You too.
So where are you at, Jane?
I'm just I'm just outside Stratford upon Avon, I guess, which is the place most people know in England.
Okay.
University of Warwick.
I was actually born in Newmarket.
In where? Sorry.
I said I was actually born in Newmarket.
Oh wow, that's not too far with the
Cambridge.
horses.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and so whereabouts are you? Sorry, in the US?
I'm in California now.
Oh, I love California, but I guess everybody says that. Whereabouts in California? Oh,
Southern California, down by close to Palm Springs, actually.
oh, nice.
Mm-hmm.
No, nice. I was supposed to be meeting up with somebody at San Diego University, but of course that's all gone to pot. So
True.
we can't meet up. But
I heard California. This is also Ralph from California too.
Oh wow, that's.
I'm in San Francisco.
I'm from Los Angeles.
Oh, there you go.
Southern California, SC.
I'm feeling very envious now. No.
I think what we miss the most now is the beach, because we can't go there.
You can't go on the beach.
No, they're all closed off. They closed off the parking, so if you can't park, Californian without a car is like a Mongol without a horse. So everybody has to have a car, and if we can't park, how are we going to go to the beach?
Yeah, just because of this health and safety issues and COVID. Yeah,
it's true.
Yeah,
it was getting great, and then all of a sudden it's getting worse. So I think that comes from people in OC, Orange County, Riverside County, and I think like Costa or something up north. They put us in the bad list. Now we're on the red list.
Oh no. Well.
But we're staying safe.
Yeah, stay safe. Yeah.
Apologies for the breakout room issues. This is Samantha from Course Hero. We'll be rejoining the main session shortly, and then we'll have another opportunity to have a breakout session, but please feel free to try to use this time as much as you can to discuss questions.
It's been lovely. I've really enjoyed it. Feeling very envious of all my everybody else in LA and California rather than Britain. But
so is everybody teaching online, fully online right now?
Well, it's our summer break, but we're.
Are you going to be? I mean, we're set for the fall.
At Warwick, possibly the spring. At Warwick, everybody's trying to get the students back in, obviously because they pay a lot of accommodation fees, I guess. And we've said that 25 plus lectures will be online. And then face-to-face smaller groups will be a mix depending on the staff and the students. So I'm hoping not to go on because I've got asthma, but I might be whipped onto campus. I don't know what my power will be to resist just yet. How about you? How's it going to be for you?
We're going to still be online in the fall and into the winter session, and probably the spring. We're probably, my understanding is probably going till June 2021. So.
Gosh, completely, like the students aren't getting back onto campus at all to live on campus, or?
No.
No.
And see, USC, they opened up for, because of sports, because they wanted to play sports, but then they closed off that. We got Garcetti here, he kicked everybody out and said, hey, go home. And I guess we just wait for the all ahead one full. But right now
was it a blue color car behind you?
Oh yeah, that's a Ferrari 458.
There you go. I can see that. I can smell from here.
Yeah, that rich burning fuel, the high octane.
Yeah, the 4 nozzles. Yeah. I teach only online, so I'm an adjunct, so it should be same thing for me. But I'm looking forward for the changes we are bringing to your university and other things. So kind of mix of students, both hybrid model.
Well, we have to have certification here in California for both. I guess you got to take like 2 classes, Introduction to Canvas and course design. If you don't have that completed, you will not be teaching in the winter or the spring. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm doing crash courses. I'm doing
That
2
is
of the
true,
courses.
because I've been teaching online and adjunct for the last about 10 years, or maybe 11 years now. Yeah, that's just a good transition to have that, the logistics and things like that will be very useful.
You have your badges and certification for Canvas.
Yep.
How about nursing? How are you finding the nursing? Sorry, I've forgotten your first name. Is it
Susan. Sorry.
Susan.
Well, our plan for right now is we are going to do our lectures online. We're going to take them in smaller groups for their simulation and skills practice on campus. And a few hospitals have opened up to actually let us bring them back into the hospital. So not for everything, and we're really having a hard time finding sites that will do it, but we teach OB, or I teach OB, and we've got enough hospitals that have said yes to where we'll be able to take them in for their rotations. Problem is they have to have 50% live patient contact.
Wow.
And so that's because of the Board of Registered Nursing.
So who's paying for the PPE for all the, is it the students or the hospital, or is that an issue?
It's going to have to be the university. I mean, we might end up having to raise fees. I don't know, but the hospital is not supplying the students. So we bought masks and face shields and all of that for everyone.
Well, we could just send a letter to Trump.
Yeah, like
Hey.
my friend, I didn't get your name from LA. What's your name?
Oh, Tom McFall.
Tom, okay. Tom, that was a good one.
Anyway.
I mean, he says we're producing the most amount of masks and everything. Well, show me the money. Where's it at?
Yep. Okay, we got a poll.
Probably in the washer still. Yeah.
Okay, I'm looking at which way the students can contribute. I guess what I'm starting to do now, which I never did before, is a lot of discussions and giving them feedback, putting them into groups, because there's not much they can do. I mean, they can go outside, work on their car, but they need to discuss that. And I also have them creating, I tell them to take pictures of everything they're working on, and they will create a PowerPoint and then do a presentation in front of the rest of the class online for their final grade.
Thanks. Thank you for that. Welcome back to the main session, everyone. I hope things went well in your breakout rooms. We're sort of working out some of the technical logistics with that. But as you're coming back, this is a poll very similar to when you first joined the workshop, so you can participate using the link, the URL at the very top there. And I don't know, I think we should have everyone back. And Kristina and Victoria, I don't know if there's, I think, so we'll take a couple minutes to have everyone participate in the poll. You can feel free to respond using the URL at the top, or if you would like to add any additional ideas or thoughts into the chat, that works as well. And then in just a couple minutes, we'll do a recap and kind of talk about what we're seeing here.
Where is the link up?
Oh.
At the top of the PowerPoint? I mean, top of this, or activate?
We are trying to get the second, if you were responding via text, you should just be
go into the chat room?
able to. You can just respond to the link in the chat.
Oh,
if you respond to the first poll, it's at the top of the screen, but also in the chat to answer the question that's on your screen.
I can say, Tom, I think maybe we need to grab that URL into your cell phone or browser to get there.
And just call out for
I'm able to get into the chat.
I noticed some people aren't, and so I just want to call out that you can find chat by going to the bottom of your screen, and there'll be a bubble that says chat, and if you click that, it'll open up the current discussion going on in our chat.
Okay, so do I do the URL from Yvonne or?
Yeah, I just pasted the chat. Pasted in the chat.
Poly.com?
Yes.
All right. Let's
Okay.
let's post our questions in the chat from here so that we can move on with the presentation. We want to leave a lot of time at the end to talk about the assignment that we're dreaming up. So as you can see, the results of the poll are coming up live, and there's been some really awesome contributions. Clinical experience, innovation, Wikipedia page updates, research. I know that a lot of you have used these before. Maybe some of them are new to you, and you can reach out in the chat to folks or talk about this in your breakout groups about these different modalities and how they might amplify the assignment and the learning objectives.
Okay, maybe we move on to sort of the next segment and thinking about open pedagogy with those third and fourth point. To if somebody would like to unmute and answer this question live, maybe someone who is not able to participate in the poll or the chat. We would love to hear your voice. You can indicate that by raising your hand or sending a message. We will look out for that. Is there someone who would like to?
Can you hear me now?
To share out?
Well,
Yes.
Yeah.
You're already unmuted, so it's
Yeah, I could see, okay, it says, in which ways can the students contribute content to the discipline? I would probably say only way they're going to be able to do that in my area here, like automotive, is they're going to have to get into some type of teams or groups and then communicate with each other through discussions and then formulate their ideas and then present them in the discussion or in an assignment.
Okay, are they presenting those ideas out to community members?
Actually,
or is it just to the class? Or
yeah, it's between students in the class. In other words, they would be assigned a group, and then they would be communicating between each other to resolve, let's say, a diagnostic problem, doing some research, taking some pictures, creating a PowerPoint, and then presenting that to the rest of the class.
okay, that sounds great. I wonder if they could make that into a PowerPoint into a video that was accessible if someone Googled it, or they went to YouTube looking at how to solve that particular problem, and it would be available on YouTube.
Not only that, I just learned, I'm taking another course design Canvas class, and I just saw how you're able to embed a video into the PowerPoint. So that looks promising. I mean, if they can do that in their PowerPoint, then yeah, you're right. They can submit that either on a YouTube or in their Canvas assignments or discussions.
Sure. Thank you very much for sharing. I really appreciate it. Maybe we should ask those that share just to say their name and where they're from. It's not everybody has their name as their Zoom
Okay, I'm Tom
handle.
McFall.
So
Tom McFall from Los Angeles Trade Technical College, Los Angeles, California.
okay.
Home of the LA riots back in '92.
All right. Thank you, Tom. We really appreciate it. So something that Tom said that made me think of something that I heard in my breakout room is that there's this show not tell, right? So that part of the session is that we're showing and not necessarily telling you, but you're learning through the Zoom room and the breakout rooms what's happening. And we have an embedded video to show you, to kind of show, not tell, that piece that Tom had mentioned. But with that, there's going to be hopefully opportunities for lots of voices to be heard. But with that, we're going to move on to the next piece, so that you have an opportunity to get back into your breakout rooms and talk again. So we're going to move forward to number 3 in our list of how we are thinking about open pedagogy. And that is from an applied learning perspective, right? So there's a lot that has been written about applied learning and been discussed, but if it's going to be valuable to the student, so we want these assignments to be valuable, the feedback to be valuable, but if the learning in general is going to be valuable, making that personal connection and understanding how that relates to the student experience is very important, right? So is it relevant to the students' daily lives? And how do students make equity of the knowledge, right? Or how do we make equity of our knowledge in terms of how the students are engaging with it? So thinking about how that learning can be applied. And some disciplines, it's way more, I guess, immediately obvious how those connections are made, right? But some, it's a bit more challenging to think through it. So we hope that there'll be different disciplines represented in your breakout group, and you can talk through that more. And the last one is very close to my heart, and it's something that I've been doing engaging assignments for a long time. It's part of the ethos at Guttman Community College, which is the CUNY campus where I work. We're very experiential, but something that one of our values is civic engagement. And I tell the students, well, maybe you're here in the classroom, but you have an obligation for all of your friends, family, community members that were not able to be here in this classroom. Maybe they could not engage in the college experience, to share what you're learning with them in some kind of way. And, go home and have a dinner table conversation about, Dr. Baines' cool class, yes. But also, there's a very deep sort of being a citizen, and an engaged citizen of the community, where I appeal to that sense of deep obligation in some kind of way, and that's motivating in a way. So we sharing learning with the community, but also we find that these kinds of assignments where students have to create an assignment, a product for the community, or an activity for the community, can be very motivating in terms of their autonomy. So how to talk to your community, then you do it. You think about what this assignment is going to look like and what it's going to be like. So what we'd like to do in the next breakout room is for you to think through those two pieces very explicitly, the applied learning piece and the civic engagement piece, with these two questions. Is how is this lesson relevant to your students? So like I said, some of those would be maybe a very quick connection, but some might be a little bit more challenging. And how can it feed back into their communities? So how can that information that if your students create, how can that feed back into their communities? Okay, so talk through how your learning outcomes relate and feedback into the community and the characteristics of the communities of your student population, right? So you all teach all around the world at various institutions, age, locations, ethnicities, historical moments, all these kinds of your discipline. So you're coming from very different places, and we love that. We love that you're all here right now to think through what that means. Not everybody's community is the same. Not relevance doesn't look the same for everybody's students in everybody's students' communities. Remember to allow at least 1 minute of feedback. You're presenting for about 2 minutes, or you're sharing your answers to these two questions for about 2 minutes, and then you're allowing 1 minute for your the other folks in your breakout room
and let's
to share their thoughts.
And let's try to be equitable and make sure that everybody gets their moment to talk about their assignment and to go through these questions. So let's have the philosophy of one person, one microphone, and let's let people answer these questions completely, and then let's give them thoughtful feedback that relates to our experience. We have a really good question from the chat from Mario. I'm just going to find it. Mario would like us to speak briefly about privacy concerns or how to manage a conversation around privacy concerns when sharing your work publicly, like on YouTube and Facebook.
Yeah, that's a really, really great question. And it's something that we at Guttman engage with students at the very, very beginning, right? Of like what it means to learn in public. And there may be some assignments that are where you're asking students to share parts of, you know, their student persona or their human persona in a student forum that they may not feel comfortable with. So I think that conversation is one of the first conversations that you have. And you share that there's the pros and cons of working in public, right? This real-time feedback, this real contribution to the community is weighed against, you know, privacy concerns. Absolutely.
And I think practicing this nuance, particularly as a student, is so important as we move on outside of this very safe space in a classroom and are just engaged citizens. Practicing being able to communicate in this way is really important.
Yeah, and I had an assignment when I first, you know, got my full-time professor position, where I was talking to the provost, and I'm like, you know, students in my class are tweeting with rigor, and like Twitter is a space it's a professional space, but not everybody, you know, uses it in a professional way, and for that to be a skill that students are learning at the same time as a discussion about, you know, who are you on Twitter. And if you're engaging in a professional way on Twitter with people who are professionals in your community, how do we do that? How do we tweet with rigor? How do we say things based on our educational experience in this class?
And what makes it more than an opinion? Yeah. What makes it more than just someone's personal perspective? So we'd love for you to talk about that, and to answer these questions, I'll paste them into the chat again right now so that you don't lose them, and everyone will have an opportunity to answer them.
And if you have a timekeeper, like every group has a timekeeper, right? There's a little counter, a little time, so you see how much time you have has elapsed and how much time you have remaining in the breakout group. If your group can have someone who's just like, okay, 2 minutes, okay, 1 minute, you know, I know that we probably, I wish we were all together in San Francisco, you know, having this conversation for 3 hours, but all right. Thank you very much. Enjoy your breakout groups. We'll come back. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. We're all coming back in. The poll will be up any moment. The others are still coming back in.
Looks like they have 60 seconds left on their countdown timer.
Good to see you back again.
Good to see you as well. I hope you
mute.
How have the breakout rooms been going?
You know, it's a very interesting. This is the first time I have experienced the breakout sessions navigating back to the main room. It is very nice. The technology transition was very smooth, in addition to what we discussed as well. That was good.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Speaking of smooth technology, right on cue. So yes, that's great. That's great. We are experiencing a little bit of, you know, we want the breakout rooms to be equitable and then the same number of people in all. And we do find that some folks perhaps don't go into the breakout rooms, and then we're trying to kind of coordinate so that people can have someone to talk to. So thank you. If that was your experience, thank you for your patience. I hope that you were able to connect with the good conversation that you wanted to have in real time.
Certainly, like, one happy accident from this is that we're getting to know some of you and your work, and there's such incredible things happening And I've talked to people in 3 different countries, which is also pretty good for a Wednesday. So I'm feeling really positive about it.
I see Melissa saying that she was alone. I'm so sad to hear that. Sam is going to let us know. Sam, if somebody is alone in a breakout room, the reason that happens, I think, is because the people that you were assigned to the breakout room decide they don't want to go breakout. Maybe they're feeling shy, or maybe they're feeling like, they're doing something else. So Sam, do you have, if someone ends up alone, is there a way that they can, from the breakout room, let you know that so they can be assigned to a different breakout room? I'm not sure of that. We'll just do a 1 second of tech, because I don't want people to be alone.
I'll do my best. I would just suggest there's a button to leave the room, and that will take you back to the main session. And I'm trying my best to reassign people as they come in, but feel free to message me directly, Samantha, if you want to use the chat feature, and I would be happy to do a troubleshooting with you.
Okay,
Nice.
Great.
Yeah, in my breakout room, I think me and one more. So luckily we were 2, but yeah, it was okay.
Okay.
Oh.
So coming up is the poll. Oops.
I'm so sorry.
Thank you. Thank you all. Welcome back. As you're coming in, please answer the question on your screen. How is this lesson relevant to your students' communities? I love these 2 quotes that are up on the screen right now. This is amazing. Isolating bacteria from their environments. What an amazingly relevant lesson right now, and helping understand current events, which there's so much overlap there. And I'm thinking these come from very different disciplines, but they're both really great contributions, experiential experiences. As we're coming back into the room and we're welcoming everybody back in, and we're looking at what they're contributing, how their lesson was relevant to their students' communities. We'd like to invite you, if you'd like to speak, unmute yourself and speak. If you can just put in the chat that you have something to share, maybe what we're reporting out. If you're not using the chat and you don't want to share in the chat, maybe in about 1 minute, we'll ask you to raise your hand, unmute yourself, so that we can hear from at least 1 or maybe 2 people, I think, at this point, before we...
I don't see any hands up, but I know you're all educators, so you can't be shy. I see that there was some really positive feedback that a few people got from their breakout groups. So if you'd like to share a little bit more and share the insight of the great teachers that you were just talking with, we'd love to hear from you.
And you can go ahead and unmute now. If there's nobody waiting in the chat to share.
Well, can I say something?
Maybe, sorry.
Okay, no problem. All right.
Yeah, I was kind of raising my hand because I don't know how to raise the hand from electronically.
So why don't we hear from
Safa first?
Yes.
And then from Rao.
Okay. Well, all right. Hello, thank you very much. It's very fantastic and exciting, this breaking our rooms. This is very great. It's my first time really to show for something like this. However, I'm talking from Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, working in Prince Sultan University, Linguistic Department, College of Humanities. And I was lucky to share with my colleague in the breaking room about, we have really 2 different branches, because she's working with the teachers, training teachers how to create lesson plans, and then they have a whole community, local, international, and that's great. From my side, because I'm teaching content disciplines, I'm teaching sociolinguistics, morphology and syntax, public relations and marketing. Really, I discussed with my colleague about the sociolinguistics. And in fact, I asked my students to conduct a field study. And here they communicate with their community, because within their study, they have to, number 1, to observe their families, the small family and the outsider, their neighbors. Maybe for a week, observing them and collecting all the data. For example, how often do they use sorry or thank you for 7 days? And then they collect this and they share the results with their families and with the community and take their consent to have this within a video, and then they present this to their family and within the class. Something else with the other course, which is the morphology and syntax, and this is the really my main concern is how the word structure. So now at this, they ask each participant and each member within the family, wherever they go, restaurant or in the streets or wherever, they collect words as much as they can. And then they sit on the table and we have an open session. Their family members and the class members, and we start to collect these words and discuss how, what's the history of these words. So now the students enjoy and the family enjoy, because can you imagine how do their grandpa use colors maybe? So one color, they discovered that their sister, their brothers, and the grandmother, grandfather, father, they express the same color differently, completely differently. We have Arabic language and have international students also. So one word expresses differently. And it's the same word, gives the same meaning. So now they enjoy that, and it's that's it.
Okay, thank you so much, Safa, for sharing. That sounds like an amazing project. I know you're breaking up a little bit, but it sounds like your students are collecting data, sociolinguistic data, and preparing with the community and preparing a video presentation, and that you talk through that assignment. That sounds like an incredibly engaged and applied assignment. I see we have one hand raised in the chat. We have Rao on deck, and then Anjana. So maybe we'll start with Rao. Are you ready to talk, or would you prefer?
And if we could keep it to just maybe 1 minute, just a really quick recap.
Yeah, I think it's very important, because I think this question is so relevant. I teach at Chatham University for a Masters of Science program. Most of my students are doctors and administrators in the providers and hospitals, experienced nurses, etc. So my course was to bring the population health management and a data visualization. So evidence-based management techniques I teach in the data analytics. So I show them, you have so much of population data in your own hospitals. Use these technologies, what you're learning in the class. Take this back to the work where you're working and see how this is relevant for you. So that way they can think differently and apply the solutions and taking the decisions rather than emotionally. Now they're taking decisions based on the data-driven approach. That's what I found to be very, very relevant.
Nice. I like how you talk about the relationship between emotion and data, and how they can kind of be, you can still keep that rigor, but still have that connection, right?
Yeah.
The data infusing the rigor, but you can still have that emotional connection that you back up with the.
True. Very true.
To make these assignments about the content and about the learning and the relevance, but not just about thoughts and ideas, right? To push that a little deeper. All right, so we have just quickly, and then we're going to move on to our design process. Anjana, raised a hand. Do you like to?
Hi. I'm a professor at CUNY. So.
Oh, I have a colleague.
Yeah. I teach in biology, biochemistry, so health relevance is much easier to communicate to the students. But what I tend to do is raise a question like, if the genomic data is available, to understand how the disease prone patient is, who can have that data, who is the kind of an owner, and to realize that the data is out there, but it is required to understand how the policies should be made, and it should not be used against the patient for their predisposition conditions. And that is how I kind of try to connect the lesson beyond their knowledge about how to get the data and why it is useful and so on.
Yes, and those issues of access, like when those get turned on their head, when access can be used for nefarious purpose, and how we just define that. So that goes back to, I guess, an earlier question about public use, public access. So thank you so much. All right, thank you all for your valuable contributions to this broader discussion and discussions in your breakout groups. It sounds like those were, we overheard some great conversations. Now we're going to move on to the second piece, the second hour of the workshop. We're only a few minutes behind, so that's good. Well done. Which is the assignment design piece, right? So we're actually going to think about the nuts and bolts, and there's been lots of thinking around this already as we were talking about sort of like the theory and philosophy behind these kinds of renewable assignments. Now we're going to kind of take those ideas and kind of the nuts and bolts, make them a little bit more explicit and talk about them explicitly in our breakout group. So what is your open space? So where are these assignments living? And how are they engaging with this open space? We're gonna share our design ideas and get excellent feedback on our assignment design. So before we do that, we just wanted to give you a few of sort of general ideas. We'll put this slide up again in a little bit, but these are just some of the things that have already come up in the conversation in the chat, but also things to sort of think about in a more explicit way. So we have wikis that have been discussed, web blogs, I mentioned those. Oh, someone commented on my post. The OER Commons is a little bit more of a sort of institutionalized way to make assignments live on. You can take them from the commons, you can access them. So that's in terms of like the actual assignment itself. What is your public? What are the public? You know, op-eds are something that many of us have been engaging in the current moment. Can students write those? How are students writing those? YouTube we mentioned as well. A lot of people are on YouTube with their how-to videos, right? I do that. Many of our students do the same, right? I don't know how to do this. Just put it in YouTube and get a video and shows me how to do it. So having students create those for their peers with content from the course. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Again, all these kinds of pros and cons to using social media in your assignments. It can be very, very engaging and it can be very relevant. But you know, there's also all of those drawbacks or considerations when you're thinking about them. So hopefully those will come up in the discussion. And I think that we really wanted to share with you something that we do with Cool. This is something that we have done with Cool Anthropology, and these students have worked, students have developed these with our guidance in Cool Anthropology. So these weren't an assignment per se, but they are student developed. And what they are is a quote from a famous anthropologist about the power of ethnography, which is the anthropological, primary cultural anthropological method. And we highlighted different ethnographers and then posted them on our Instagram, which you should all follow at Cool Anthro, at Cool Anthro on Twitter, Cool Anthropology on Facebook. But they have a quote, and then in the caption, we require like a long form caption where they actually connect the quote back to the learning. Basically, they talk about ethnography and how this relates to ethnography and ethnobotany. So the sort of a more long form writing is happening in the caption and the visual pop of the quote meme that could be shared throughout social media.
Yeah, and I think that the main key here is to really have the research citation in the body of the text that they write. You know, they can find anything that resonates with them and then make it really relevant in a public space using actual research. So we really like to employ this with Cool Anthropology. We've had great results both with students and with the public. And we're huge proponents of lifting up the voices of our discipline and getting them out there, out of the ivory tower.
So these are just some ideas. We also wanted to share with you a video of student work. This was an assignment, a video essay, which was a final assignment in a city seminar food justice class that I taught, where students needed to make a video that took the food justice concepts and discussions that had happened over the course and share them with their peers in the form of a YouTube video. And this is, they all took a very different approach. It was very student-led, and this is just, we're gonna show you part of what one of my students did.
Wait, there's audio.
Is there audio?
Is there audio?
You're gonna have to, you won't be able to play audio like that. Usually when you share your screen, there's like an option at the bottom if you want to play audio. At this point, it might be too late to add that option.
All right, so why don't we move on?
If you quit sharing screen and then redo it, you can get the audio option.
Okay. Maybe we'll try that. And in the meantime, we'll talk a little bit about video essays. Because those are something that have come up in this conversation before, and it's something that I use a lot in my class. And I was saying that video is a format that many students are comfortable with. Some, not all, but many of my students are comfortable with because they create short videos on their phone. So they don't require a lot of technical skills or technology, and we don't sort of focus on technical skill and instead focus on content. And students often have to write an accompanying sort of brief or a reflection on how the process of making the video was and why they made the choices of the content that they put in the video. So they have to sort of justify their choices to the professor. So it's not so much there's grading creative work. As an anthropologist, like grading video editing is not something that I think was appropriate in the context of the assignment, so that I grade the thought process that goes into the assignment, and the video essay can kind of stand for itself in terms of its creative piece. So thinking about rubrics and are especially important perhaps, because some students are like, I don't know how to video edit, but are we gonna try it? Do we think we can?
Guess not.
Okay, well, you know, the video link, these are Google Slides, and anybody can have them and use them after this presentation. And I think that the link, we'll put the link in the audio, that'll make sure so if you would like to listen to the audio of this video, that you can do so after our workshop, and apologies for that piece. I was very happy with how the technical stuff was going, but apologies. We'll take responsibility for that. All right, so moving on then, now that you've had a little bit of a few ideas, I have a few ideas after this breakout as well, but let's go ahead and go into our breakouts and answer the questions of which open spaces pique your interests, which ones have, maybe a lot of you have used them before, some of them maybe want to use them, but you don't really know how to design an assignment around them, and how would the different spaces help you meet your learning outcomes. So let's bring this discussion back to, like, what is it that you actually want students to learn in your class? And so which one of these spaces, or two of these spaces, might help you achieve your learning outcomes. So talk through the pros and cons of a few different spaces as they relate to your assignment and your student population. Remember to just speak for 2 minutes. Allow 1 minute for feedback. If you find yourself in a room with nobody else, just come back into the main room, and Sam will try to make sure that you get into a room that has other people. If you're here, we understand if you don't want to engage in a breakout room, but don't leave. Be encouraged. Go share. All right, we'll see you soon. As you're coming back in, go ahead and do our latest poll. Oh, here we go, real-time results.
And just calling out, it looks like there's still a group of people still trapped in their breakout rooms regardless.
Okay, our friends will join us soon. Well, congratulations, you're the lucky ones that get to come back to the main room. Or maybe you're the unlucky ones. We don't know. Maybe you're the ones that would rather be in your breakout room still. we'll just wait to give you a few minutes to do the poll and to wait for the others to arrive before we move.
So maybe we can ask someone to report out.
Sure. Would someone like to, who's here in the room, would someone like to talk about their conversation and report out how the conversation went in regards to the platform and your learning outcomes?
Okay.
All right, Kristen, I think.
Yes, it's Kristen.
Oh, hi, Kristen. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, I guess this is the first time I've done this. What we're talking about, you know, we through all the education classes, and so for me, it's the beginning of a process, I think. And at this point in time, I still struggle with having my students understand the difference between that education is not entertainment, and that it takes a lot of hard work to sit through a primary source. I teach social studies and world history, and it takes a lot of, you have to really sit down and go through that primary source, identify the keywords, I figure out what the message is, write it in your own words, and it's so satisfying, and it's very rigorous, and it feels good, and that's the meat and potatoes of learning, I think. And then my students will say this is boring or this isn't interesting, and I understand that to get to that point where it is interesting, that's the process I'm going through. Maybe what you're trying to teach me here is that it's going to get the gap there between I'm saying this is fun, you just have to stick with it a little longer, and then, you know, here is something I'm not quite sure about because this is the first time I'm learning it. So that's my comment. I don't know what you have to say about it.
Oh, wow. I think that's a wonderful comment, Kristen. And thank you for being here with us and being open to this process. And I do think that like you said, it feels good to get that primary source and to really do that rigorous and deep learning. And how do you explain to students that that feels good? And I think that what we're trying to do here is that if the assignment culminates in just to use an example, we showed an Instagram meme, right? That could be shared by hundreds and thousands of people. If the students have if that's the assignment, is to dig deep enough into that primary source and understand it deep enough that you can select the right quote and that you can contextualize the right quote. And that's the assignment. And you know that you have to do that work to get to a meme that can be shared. It's that student investment in that sharing process, whether, you know, I always like to appeal to my students, you know, civic engagement, you know, their citizenry. You have this obligation to your parents and to your community to share this information with them in a way that they can understand it. Because you're in college and you know how to go deep and really, and you have the time and you have the energy to give it to yourself. But, you know, there's different ways to appeal to students. You know, sometimes the students roll their eyes at me and I'm like, well, do it for your grade then, right? Or do it so you can get popular. And it's so interesting because I had an Instagram assignment with a hashtag that we collated, and students had an experiential activity at a garden, and they hashtagged, you know, whatever, and they had to write about like environmental ethics in relationship to urban gardening. And apologies for if my language is offensive to anyone, but one of I teach in New York City, but one of the students' friends and I encourage them to use their actual Instagram. They can create another one for class if they want to, and they can. But one of his friends commented, "Scholar shit," like, whoa, that's some scholar shit. And, you know, the student was really excited about it, right? And they're like, oh, so like, if you say, okay, we're gonna sit down, yeah, it might be boring at first, but you're going to feel really good when you are able to extract the main point and put it on your Instagram, and your friends are going to be, you think your friends are going to make fun of you, but they're actually going to be like, whoa, you know, I didn't know you could think like that. So I don't know. I don't know if I really answered your question. I really appreciate you being here and bringing that up because I think it's really important. So, all right. We are going to look at the screen. Thank you for sharing, Kristen. And I think we're going to move on to our final breakout and kind of frame this in a little bit more detail. So some of you may be at the very beginning of your process. Some of you may be, using many of these tools already. I see that you are. Just to kind of, oops.
It's totally.
Our PowerPoint is going crazy. So while we get that back in touch, I want for this final breakout, what we're going to do is share a few more examples if we can. I just shared a verbal example. Maybe that was the PowerPoint telling me that I talk too much. Just to remind you about the design ideas, these are just some things maybe that you talked through already, but like, what is really going to work best? How do you use it, right? I mentioned a hashtag with Instagram. But some people mentioned Wikis, right? There's different ways to do it that have different accessibility to the public. And there's a couple other examples we wanted to give before we could kind of encourage you to go deeper. This for the Food Justice City Seminar, I had students create web blogs about food, like they researched food blogs, and then they researched what was important in their communities and the food access in their communities. They had to do an inventory of a bodega and what was accessible, and then they had to tell a food narrative. So we kind of integrated, it's a sort of interdisciplinary seminar. And then they made these food blogs that were actually really engaging and to talk about their food experiences and their food in their neighborhood. So this is an example. ePortfolio, your institution would have to subscribe to it, but you can do this with WordPress or other open blogging tools. And this is an example of another assignment of my own, where students learning about environmental ethics had to design. They did some research in an archive of environmental activist posters. Then they had to design their own. They actually had an opportunity to have a gallery show on Fifth Avenue in New York, which doesn't always happen and is not necessarily going to happen. But you can design galleries in an online space. There's probably lots of art galleries that would like to collaborate to do that. So they had a gallery space, and then they created a zine, an old school zine that they circulated, which is sort of like a community before we had sort of internet access, a way of community. Yes, Pinterest gallery. I see that in the chat. That's a great idea. And created a zine where people could go and see they could circulate them in the community. And that was part of the assignment, to circulate them.
Yeah, the zine is easy to produce. It's really just those posters printed
and photocopied.
And photocopied. So super lo-fi, old school technology.
So that could be a zine. Is it's short for magazine, but it's a community produced magazine that gained popularity kind of with activist communities, where information was circulated and just photocopied and circulated, and it often includes a multimedia dimension. So even though it's on paper, it will include like photographs and drawings and poetry, in addition to statistics and community information. And the idea is it doesn't have to go through a publishing house. It can go straight into the community. So before, the internet allowed us to do that in different ways, but it actually helps you reach different populations that may not have the same kind of internet access. All right, so we are at our last breakout group. Congratulations for making it here. And I would, what we're going to ask you to do in this breakout group is to take a few minutes to design and sketch the outline for your assignment and focus on the relatability, the community access, the space that's best suited, and the takeaways that resonated from the presentation and the breakout discussion. So what did you learn through your breakout sessions and through these slides? What did you think about? And then divide the remaining time equally amongst your participants and answer the following questions. What is your assignment idea? So what is it? What have you, did you solidify it? And where will it live? And allow that time for feedback. remember the questions are in the chat to guide you. And when we come back, we will have a slightly longer time for a much more open Q&A and report out about your assignments. So please divide the time equitably. Please be generous in your feedback, as I know that you are being with your group members. And thank you for sticking with it. We'll see you in a few minutes. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. As you're coming in, you might recognize, if you were here, if you've been here with us for the long haul, you'll recognize this question. So go ahead and send your answer to the poll everywhere. Oh, and we're asking in the chat, did anyone's word change? You can answer in the chat, or I did write down a couple of words from earlier.
I love seeing them come in.
Yes. This is my favorite poll everywhere. Has anybody used poll everywhere in their classes? Not necessarily as an assignment or a renewable assignment, but just as an engaging tool. Yeah, it's very, students love it. And it's a way to kind of, if you ever, I don't know if anybody has different kinds of phone policies. Some of us sort of lean into the phones in the classroom, and this is a way to kind of have the phone be used in an interactive and engaging way.
It can also lift up some quieter voices that may not raise their hand and speak. Especially the polls that we did where you were typing in your long form responses, you know, that can really help folks that are less likely to speak in class.
Okay. So as we're coming in, I think most of us are here. I love seeing engaged and engaging, accessible, collaborative, non-hierarchical. That's a new one that I don't remember that from from the previous word cloud, the first one. This word cloud is generated with Poll Everywhere, and Poll Everywhere is a tool that you can, all the different kinds of polls that you've seen throughout this workshop are all Poll Everywhere. It's the same tool, and you can just choose how you think the data will be best displayed for the question that you ask. All right, so we're coming back in, and I wonder, oops, we're not quite ready to end yet. We have some time, which is great, where we can share, and we can ask questions and share some of our thoughts and learning. So who would like to share? You can put your hand up, you can say in the chat, or you can unmute if you're not using either the hand raising or the chat function, and share out with the larger group what your assignment is, what you're thinking about using, how it's engaging in community and supporting open pedagogies, or just tell us what you talked about in your group. I don't see any hands yet. Feel free to unmute if you want to just start talking.
Okay,
Who
can
would
I
like to
start
share?
working? Yes. Can I?
Sure.
Yeah, okay. I just discussed with my group that I'm planning, inshallah, in the fall semester, because I'm having a public relation and marketing course. So I will ask my students to start a campaign for raising awareness of COVID-19 within their district, within the city. And this is one part. The other part, they will access some companies and ask them about designing an ad for them, which is not an offensive ad or whatever, because I'm teaching them how to develop the perfect ad by displaying and discussing with them some ads which is not right and which is good, and so on. So by that, I think they will feel that they are sharing with the community and they are doing something for the community within the campaign and the ad itself. This is my idea.
Wow, thank you for sharing, Tafa. a great idea. Does anybody have, okay, a PSA I'm seeing in the chat? Any other ideas, or would anybody like to speak to Safa's idea, or share one of your own?
I'm interested in giving better voice to the people I don't talk about. I teach chemistry, and I want to talk more about the women and the people of color and the people that weren't scientists, quote. So that can be done very different ways, but it hinges on finding the stories of the people that did the science, because it's bringing that story to the front. And I think that's what people miss in science, is that it's not easy, and you got to keep trying, and you have to be willing to fail a few times and get back up and do it again and do it. And it doesn't matter where you come from, you just got to keep doing it. It's not about being super smart, it's about being super stubborn. And, you know, they can understand that better when they hear stories of people who have failed a million times and succeeded twice and they got a Nobel Prize, you know. So that's kind of the idea. And I can do it by wiki, I can do it by videos. There's a lot of ways to deliver it.
Thank you, Ashley. Thank you very much. That sounds like a great idea. And I saw Jennifer in the chat was offering the Instagram idea, I think from our example, which might actually be a great way as well. You do the research. A fun story, thanks Jennifer, a fun story of Victoria and I had talked years back about starting a journal of failures because academics are under so much pressure, and there's a lot of like science that doesn't get published, right? And it's good science. It might be a failure in terms of, the end result, but the process, and sharing those processes I think are very valuable too. So we never did start that journal, but we always are meeting people that want to. So you might want to network if anybody wants to get that going.
Yeah, and my background's in development, and I have a really strong propensity to use open source and to evangelize open source. And in this world, the world that I live in it's fully documented and free for anyone to remix and to innovate. And that's sort of, I think, a really great philosophy to bring into this space, into a learning space. It's just, how can we make it so that many different types of people with many different kinds of perspectives can have access to relevant information that's based on sound research.
Right. So like you mentioned, the wiki idea, is that one way to kind of map that onto an assignment as well? So a great conversation. Are there any other hands up or questions in the chat, or anybody else who would like to unmute? Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, Safa.
Or any general questions from any part of the presentation? We'll definitely close out the session with any general questions or anything that people learned that they thought was really relevant, that they think that other people might want to reflect on, and it should resonate with other folks too.
I had one comment about Thomas Edison. He tried 10,000 times and failed with the light bulb, and at 10,001 it finally lit. So it's failure is the secret to success.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. And I think that too many resources are spent doing the same failures. And there needs to be much more access and like an open pedagogy that brings this information, so that we're not recreating the same mistakes and competing for the same funding to do the research.
Isn't that what they call insanity?
A little bit. I don't want to get too political here, though.
Any other comments? Anybody would like to unmute or raise their hand? Questions, shares? I see some thank yous.
I have one question.
Sure.
Regarding all these design ideas, do you ever get your students to complain about the too much of work? Because this is definitely an additional, in addition to whatever you are asking other assignments and all.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I do. Definitely students push back against some of the assignments, but some students push back against research papers, and they push back against quizzes and they push back against multiple choice exams, right? So I think that, you know, I try to put a little of everything in my courses, which sometimes is complicated, but I think that I do encourage students to push through the pain a little bit. Like I tell them, like, could you please, you know, trust me, this is going to be better. This is your duty. I guess I lean on that civic engagement piece and the applied piece quite a lot. And I try to engage them by saying that, you know, you're producing knowledge. I think that when there's that connection, when students actually kind of see that public feedback, or they see that I tell them to trust me until they see that, right? And it's interesting that I think that students complain no matter what you're doing. I think, and I think that they see the value. Even the students that complain oftentimes on my evaluations are like, the best thing was when we, you know, went to the garden, even though I whined about it, and then we, you know, contributed to the community and wrote a policy brief or whatever, you know, you're going to do. It's worth it. It's worth pushing. It's worth pushing the students to the.
And something I do a lot in business and in community organizing is speak to the minority, or like the one dissenter, or like we do so much planning based on our fear of these, just a handful of people. And I think that we should focus more on how to steward them and usher them into this and include them in this rather than plan around it.
Yeah. I did get our 2-minute time check, and I would love to keep this conversation going. I wish we were sitting around a fire in San Francisco, but I would like to we lost our slides, so I want to verbally send out the thank you slides. Thank you first to everybody who is still here after a very long workshop with a lot of interactivity, a lot of thinking, a lot of action. Thank you for still being here and joining us from all time zones, in all kinds of work environments. And we really appreciate you being here with us and sharing your insights and being so generous with each other. We'd also like to thank Sam and Natalie, who are on this call from Course Hero, who have helped us with the breakout rooms. This is their first session, their first sort of interactive session. So they've done an amazing job. Everybody got to talk to people, and we really appreciate that. And also Alex and all the others from Course Hero as well. In addition to my students, I want to give them a shout out for all the examples. And our interns at Cool Anthropology. We really hope that you all can follow us at Cool Anthropology. And also I wanted to mention that I have experience working with other faculty in how to enhance their assignments, especially for the online space. So doing some of these things is particularly in the online space, which I think we're all grappling with right now. And I have open Course Hero conference hours, office hours, I guess. So if you see in the program that there are people that you can talk with about specific assignments, it could be this assignment from the workshop or any other kind of issues with how to kind of engage students in the online space. I'm available over the next couple of days by appointment, I think, how that's going to work. I don't know if you have an update on how that's going to work, or Natalie, I'm not sure. Okay, well, look out for it. As you're browsing the agenda, I'm sure there'll be a notice on connect with a person, and one of those people will be me. If you would like to have other conversations, you can also connect with us directly. On our profile is our email, and our and then our public sites is Cool Anthro as well. So thank you again to all of you.
Yeah, thank you. It's actually been a blast, and we got to get into a few of the breakout groups, and the discourse was so heightened, and everyone seemed really inspired. And I hope that we can take these lessons with us, and we can bring them to our students and our mentees, and to public spaces. And let's get the information out of the ivory tower, and let's put it on the streets where it belongs. So thank you so much for joining us.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Victoria and Kristina. Really appreciate it. And for everyone joining today, thanks for being here. And we hope to see you in a future session later today or this week. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.